History of North Dakota, Shadows of the Early Frontier. The history of North Dakota begins long before European eyes ever gazed upon its vast prairies. By the mid-1700s, this rugged land was already home to thriving civilizations. The Mandan, Hidatsa, and Arikara carved out lives along the winding Missouri River, their earth lodges whispering stories of trade and survival. In the northeast, the Ojibwe, known locally as Chippewa or Anishinaabe, stood alongside the Cree, while powerful Sioux groups, the Assiniboine, Yankton, Wahpeton, and Teton, claimed the northern plains, the southeast, and the western stretches of the territory. Yet, this world was about to change forever. Explorers and traders in a land of secrets. In 1738, the Canadian fur trader Pierre Gaultier de Varennes, Sieur de la Vérendrye, ventured into the heart of what is now North Dakota. He discovered a cluster of earthen lodge villages near present-day Bismarck, where the ancient traditions of the Mandan people thrived. By the 1790s, fur traders from Hudson Bay and Montreal began to arrive, drawn by whispers of wealth hidden within the untamed frontier. In 1801, the first permanent trading post rose at Pembina, marking the start of a new era. A few years later, American explorers Meriwether Lewis and William Clark arrived at the Mandan and Hidatsa villages near present-day Bismarck. They were captivated by the warmth and hospitality of the people, building Fort Mandan as a stronghold to endure the winter of 1804-05. Today, the echoes of that winter live on at the North Dakota Lewis and Clark Interpretive Center in Washburn, just 30 miles north of Bismarck, a land claimed and forever changed. The United States expanded its reach over these lands in two bold moves. First, through the Louisiana Purchase of 1803, and later with the Rush-Bagot Agreement of 1817, which secured territories drained by the Red and Souris River systems. But this growing presence brought more than political control. It unleashed a storm of cultural and physical devastation. During the 1820s and 1830s, American traders introduced guns, blankets, kettles, and liquor, but also deadly diseases. Dependency took root, and in 1837, a smallpox epidemic swept through the Mandan people, reducing their population from 1,800 to just 125 in a matter of months. Rising tensions and the path to war. The 1860s brought new chaos. Gold was discovered in Montana, and with it came an unrelenting wave of steamboat traffic. Native American hostility surged as U.S. Army forts rose like grim sentinels along the rivers. Then came the fateful March of 1876. From Fort Abraham Lincoln, near modern-day Mandan, Lieutenant Colonel George A. Custer led the 7th Cavalry into the unknown. Their path would end in blood and legend at the Battle of the Little Bighorn in present-day Montana, a moment that forever etched the history of North Dakota into the dark chronicles of the American frontier. Pioneering and the birth of statehood. By the 1860s, the once thriving fur trade had begun to wither, leaving space for a new chapter in the history of North Dakota. In 1871, the iron tracks of the railroads from St. Paul and Duluth pierced the Red River Valley, opening the gates for an unrelenting wave of Anglo settlers. Drawn by the promise of free land under the Homestead Act of 1862, pioneers flooded the plains, staking their lives on the harsh but fertile frontier. Wheat soon became the lifeblood of the land. Between 1878 and 1886, a time forever etched as the Dakota Boom. Colossal wheat farms stretched like golden seas across the horizon. This grain empire transformed Minneapolis, Minnesota, into the milling capital of the nation during the 1880s. Rival railway titans, the Northern Pacific and Great Northern, fought bitterly to reach the richest grain hubs, carving the wilderness into a web of steel and ambition. Dependence on wheat forged unity among farmers and gave rise to the populist spirit, an undercurrent that would ripple through the region's politics for decades. The Dakota Territory, established in 1861, reached its turning point in 1889. On November 2nd, the territory split, and North Dakota emerged as a state, its name etched into the growing map of the Union alongside South Dakota. North Dakota, since 1900, a frontier transformed. The early decades of the 20th century were marked by turbulence and reinvention. By 1920, the age of pioneering had ended, yet new forces rose to shape the history of North Dakota. The Nonpartisan League, a powerful political movement, established bold state-owned enterprises, a bank, a flour mill, and a grain elevator, seeking to wrest economic power from outside interests. Though its political dominance faded, the spirit of independence endured. In 1927, the North Dakota Farmers Union was born, championing cooperatives that sought to control the sale of grain and the purchase of farm supplies. This defiance spilled into national politics. Many North Dakotans opposed U.S. involvement in both world wars, convinced that distant Wall Street profiteers were the true beneficiaries of the bloodshed. The modern era: oil, highways, and hidden costs. Since 1915, the evolution of agriculture has reshaped the state. Mechanization replaced manpower, farms grew vast, and rural communities thinned. The arrival of the automobile redrew the rhythms of life, while World War II ushered in rural electrification, soil conservation, and an ever-expanding highway system. The 1950s brought a darker transformation. Beneath the windswept prairies, oil was discovered, forever altering the state's economy. Meanwhile, the monumental Garrison Dam rose on the Missouri River in 1954, creating the immense lake Sakakawea. This reservoir, vital for hydroelectric power and irrigation, came at a terrible price: the flooding of Native American homelands. Even as the 21st century began, many of these communities still sought justice for what was lost. The Cold War years brought a new kind of frontier. In the 1960s, North Dakota became a strategic outpost, bristling with Air Force bases, missile silos, and anti-ballistic systems. The 1970s saw the completion of the interstate highway system, binding the state's farthest reaches together in a web of modern connectivity. Trials of the modern age. The closing decades of the 20th century tested the resilience of North Dakota's history once again. The 1980s and 90s brought relentless challenges as global fluctuations in fossil fuel and agricultural prices rippled through the state's economy. The land itself seemed to rise against its people, with devastating floods sweeping across the prairies in the 1990s. The Freedom to Farm Act of 1996, designed to phase out federal subsidies, struck at the heart of North Dakota's agriculture, leaving many farmers vulnerable. Military downsizing, particularly at key Air Force bases, delivered yet another economic blow. North Dakota in the 21st century. The dawn of the 21st century offered little reprieve. Flooding continued to haunt the state, particularly within the drainage basins of the Red River of the North and Devil's Lake. Even the small but vital sectors of manufacturing and tourism were shaken by these natural disasters. Social struggles also began to surface. Rising teenage alcohol abuse, a surge in methamphetamine use, and gambling addiction among adults painted a troubling portrait of the times. North Dakota's government, wary of population decline, sought to draw back former residents, calling them home to raise families and breathe new life into their communities. Yet, true to its enduring character, North Dakota refused to surrender to hardship. Its people, shaped by centuries of trials, faced these challenges with a quiet but unshakable determination. The history of North Dakota is not a tale of defeat, but of unrelenting survival. From the ancient tribes who first walked its plains to the pioneers who tamed its windswept wilderness, and to the modern communities that battle economic uncertainty and the forces of nature, North Dakota remains a land defined by its fierce spirit. What will history remember next? The story of North Dakota is far from over. Each new challenge adds another layer to its mysterious and powerful legacy. As time moves forward, one question remains: what new chapters will be written on these storied plains? If you found this journey into the history of North Dakota fascinating, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to History Love, and hit the bell icon to explore more hidden tales of history. Share your thoughts in the comments. What part of North Dakota's past surprised you the most?